So welcome everyone to the AESQ documents updates for the first article inspection SMIG team. We're going to talk all about what SMIG means and a little bit more behind that. But this is a webinar that it's focused on FAIR, but it's mostly focused on the latest update to AS9102 Rev C. And I also wanted to point you to the little Slido QR code. If you would like to take your phone and go ahead and take that and log into that Slido, you'll be able to go through the polls with us. And then also that's where we want you to start putting your questions. So once you log in, you'll be able to see the polls up at the very top of your phone. You'll see polls to the right and you'll see Q&A to the left. So as we go through the webinar, the polls will pop up as we are walking through. But at any time, you should be able to click on that Q&A up at the top on the left-hand side, and we want you to start putting questions in there because towards the end of the session, we're going to walk through those questions. And so that'll be helpful to have like actual live questions that you guys are asking and curious about. So at any time, you can go ahead and put your questions into that Q&A up at the top, and then on the right-hand side, the polls will pop up as we go through the session. So if you want to, please use that QR code now to open up your Slido and log in. Okay, so today's session is recorded. So we will be distributing that video link on the AESQ site for you to all take a look at or share with your companies for those folks that weren't able to join, and then obviously other companies that weren't able to join at all, they'll be able to go onto there and watch the webinar on the AESQ site. And we're going to be using Slido, so I tried to talk about that before. Hopefully we'll have some, I can't remember, we've got some pictures of that QR code throughout the session so that you can log in if you didn't get a chance at the very beginning. But we'll be using that Slido to do the polls throughout the webinar. So please participate. It makes it a little bit better and more interactive for you guys. And then just a reminder of that Q&A that you can add the questions into there throughout the session. That way when we get to the Q&A section, we have some questions to talk about. And then I believe you were all muted whenever you came in, but I think you're able to take yourself off. I'm not quite sure, but just please remain on mute. It just helps us make things smoother and easier and that type of thing. But we definitely want to address your questions. So use that Slido Q&A. You can also use the chat, but it'll be a little bit easier for us all to see it on our slides and work out a little bit better if you use the Slido for the Q&A. Okay, next one. So this is our team that is presenting today. So you have myself, Carrie Sharkey with Rolls-Royce, Jason is with GE, Klaus is with MTU, Spencer is with Pratt & Whitney, Eva Marie is with GKN, and Brent is with GE. So we will all be presenting throughout the session today, and we have the agenda over on the right-hand side. So I'll be talking about the SMIG and what that even means, what we're doing. Spencer will be talking about the LinkedIn page. I'll be talking a little bit about the APQP and PPAP versus FAIR. Some people get a little confused between the two. Just a very high level explanation of that. And then Klaus will be running us through the 9102, just giving a high level summary of the updates that was done between Rev B and Rev C. Jason and Eva Marie will talk about the AS13100 because that does link in. So I do touch on that a little bit as well. To our reference manual. And then Spencer will be taking us through the highlights of what has updated for the reference manual, keeping in mind the updates of the AS9102. Brent will talk about some of our future plans that we have and what we're thinking about doing. And then Jason will talk us through that Q&A. So that's where it's important to make sure you put those questions in so that we can discuss those in that section and use that time to the best of your guys's your time. Use your time wisely so that way we can have some answers there for you guys. The duration is just an estimation, may not be exactly like this, that may not fit perfectly into that duration, but that's kind of the idea of how we're going to be spending our time today. Okay, next slide. So this is our first poll. So we have the QR code there. So in case you didn't grab it at the very beginning, you can grab it now. But this is what we just want to get an idea of. Are you familiar with the AESQ team and then the subject matter interest groups, which is the SMIG team that we're all a part of? So just wanted to get some of your guys' thoughts on that. So I'll just wait just a minute or so just to see what you guys tell me as far as this goes. Okay. Very good. Okay. Okay. So it seems like majority of folks are familiar with what our team is doing. And on the next few slides, I'm going to be explaining that in a little bit more detail. So hopefully help out that 26%, get a little bit more knowledge there. Okay. I think we're good to move on. Okay, so I'll be talking about the purpose and accountabilities of our SMIG. So if we first think about the AS 13100 standard, so hopefully everyone is familiar with that. That is where the AESQ team has started working or has created the AS 13100 standard. So you can see all the companies that are listed below. All of those companies were involved in developing the AS 13100 spec. So, and that is where all of us reference that. So for each one of us, whatever we flow out our requirements to you, we say you need to first follow AS 13100, and then anything additional or whatever that each customer wants, then they'll have in their own requirements flowed out to you. But the idea is that we wanted to harmonize and simplify supplier quality requirements so that no matter who you're working with, whatever customer you're working with, we should basically be asking for the same things so that it's not, oh, I've got to read everything on this customer, then I got to read everything on this customer. It's more of a, oh, I've got the general rules that flow across every one of my customers. And then I can look at maybe the smaller subsets that each one of my customers wants. So the idea is that we all came together to create that AS 13100 standard. And it's so that second bullet point, it sets out to create a common set of supplemental requirements and common reference materials. And so that's where it comes into these reference manuals that we're part of one of them. So all of those reference manuals give you a little bit more guidance around each one of their requirements, maybe the more popular requirements or the more safety related requirements have all of these reference manuals and then have associated SMIG groups with them so that we can help in any way communicate out the requirements. And then if you guys have questions or do things like this to kind of help make everybody aware of what all these requirements mean and everything. So the AS 13100 is kind of the basis where we put all of our requirements and put them all together in one spot. And then the reference manuals are there to help explain kind of the more common or safety related requirements. So if we go on to the next slide. So this lists out all of the different reference manuals that have been created to link to the AS 13100. So you have quite a few here, and each one of these has their own SMIG team associated with it. And the SMIG team is made up of folks from all of those companies that were on that previous slide. Not necessarily every single company is represented on every single reference manual SMIG team, but that is the idea: is that you get as many companies that are interested to partake on these groups. They are a part of that. Team. And so they are that group that helps develop those reference manuals. So if you have questions about those, you should be able to get a hold of those folks. The AESQ site has all of this information on it and has all of our contact information as well. And we also have some community of practices. So Spencer's going to take us through some of that stuff so that we understand that. But that's a good way to communicate with the SMIG teams is through that community of practice. But this is ours is the reference manual 13102. So it's first article inspection. So that is the one that we are responsible for as our little SMIG team. And if you want to go to the next slide. And this just gives you a little bit more around the SMIG. So SMIG stands for Subject Matter Interest Group. And that's where we have our team that's working on this reference manual specifically, but we're also accountable for AS 13100, that section, the 8516 section, and AS 13100, that's the first article inspection section. We're also responsible to make sure that that's still up to date and still makes sense with all of the changes that are coming through. So that is also our responsibility to make sure that we have that up to date. And if you guys are familiar with AS 13100, it is, I think it was published in 2021, I believe, but it is going through a ballot to get updated. It just hasn't been fully approved yet, so it's not been published. But we have that section will be updated, because if you take a look at it, some of the wording is a little bit out of date with the update to 9102 Rev C. So we do have a proposal in to make some updates in that section. So that will be coming. It's just a little bit easier to update our reference manual. So that's why that one got updated faster. It doesn't have to go through as much balloting. So the reference manual has been updated, and that's the biggest reason why we're having this webinar today, is to flow out those updates and just talk through them, because it has been updated because of the 9102 from Rev B to Rev C. So that's been updated, but the 8516 we're also responsible for in AS 13100. So that update should be coming. I don't have an exact time on when that's going to be out, but I do know it's been through a few ballots. So I know we're working on trying to get that out to you guys and updated. Not major changes in that section, just more around updating the wording and verbiage to match the AS9102 update from Rev B to Rev C. Also, that's what's part of our requirements, is that we need to promote our reference manual. So ways of doing that is at community practice. So kind of an important one that we want people to get more involved in, and we're going to do a better job of posting more and more stuff inside of that community practice, just to kind of keep the communication going. And so it's not just these webinars and questions and answers type of thing. It's also through those live, community practice on LinkedIn, so that we can answer questions that you guys might have. And I think that we have quite a few people that have joined the community practice, so we definitely want to start using that a little bit more. And then also doing webinars, best practice sharing, and training materials if we get to that point of developing it. The AS9102 team has done a great job about putting out some additional guidance for that Rev C, so which has definitely helped at least our company. So anyway, so that's kind of the idea of the subject matter interest group. If you're not familiar with us, that is our role to play in all of this. So AS 13100, our first article inspection section of 8516, and then also this reference manual is our responsibility. So those two things are what we are focused on as a SMIG team. Okay, so now I'm going to hand it over to Spencer to walk us through that community of practice LinkedIn page that I had talked about. So pay attention to this one, because I want to make sure that people get involved and ask the right questions and all of that stuff, because we do monitor that. So Spencer, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to talk through just an overview of the LinkedIn page. Next slide, please. So just a quick poll. Are you familiar with the RM13102? So we had about 38% say that they haven't seen it before. So that's good that you were able to get the notification for this webinar outside of the community of practice. This is something we have on LinkedIn. If you didn't hear about it, if you want to go in and search AESQ First Article Inspection, FAI, RM13102 Community of Practice, this page will pop up and you can join. And really what we're trying to do here is encourage comments or questions through postings. We're trying to provide, what's next and keep everybody updated with what's going on as we, evolve and adapt to the changes in the other documents that are tied to RM13102. So, again, please, we definitely encourage you to join and engage with us. And we'll, if there's questions that you have that we can take a look at as a team and provide some answers. One other thing to just to share. We're continuously growing. The member count from the last webinar that we did was about 124, and today you even exceeded this number of 393. I believe we're now over 400, so over 3x growth, which is amazing for us. So we're super excited to continue to grow this community of practice and get everybody engaged and educated on what we're trying to do with RM13102. Next slide. I'll hand it over back to Carrie.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is, so now we're kind of getting into the meat of the presentation here, because what we wanted to also make sure everyone is familiar with, I'm not going to do a deep dive, but at least it's an overall idea. So we're all getting more and more into the APQP PPAP side of things. And sometimes there's confusion around what the FAIR is versus what APQP or PPAP would be or is going to be. So I just wanted to do a few slides on that, because I know that at our supplier forum, I think we focus a lot on the APQP PPAP side of things. So I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of clarification around that. So we can move on to the next slide. So this is so a lot of my little snippets that I have in here are pulled out of the reference manual for APQP. So if you remember on that long list of reference manuals, one at the very bottom was RM13145, and that was the APQP reference manual. So a really good reference manual if you guys need some help. I think that one has recently been updated as well. So a great one to take a look at when you're thinking about using APQP and everything. So it has a lot of good information in it. So this is the landscape/timing chart when it comes to APQP. And if you kind of walk through these, I'm not going to walk through all these little bubbles are, but one of the little bubbles or events that take place, you can see is the FAIR. So the first article inspection is held inside of this entire landscape. It is an important one, so you can see it lines up with the initial production approval, because if you think about it, as part of your APQP and PPAP and gathering the data, you have to do a production process run, right? So part of that should be your FAIR, probably towards the very beginning, right? Because FAIR is first article inspection, so it should be towards the very beginning of your production process run. So that's what you would be documenting at the very beginning of that. But then you're going to continue to collect data for your APQP PPAP to where you can understand whether you can meet those requirements that are laid out. But FAIR is a piece of that overall requirement of reviewing and doing your changes or NPI or whatever it is. So it is a piece of that. So that just kind of shows you that FAI is actually its own event. It's a PPAP event that takes place. So it is an important one, but it's absolutely inside of that whole overall PPAP package. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide. So this is just kind of a high level. Okay, so if you think about running 3 different lots, so at the very beginning, let's say that lot 1 is your initial run, and you ran parts and you have a nonconformance on characteristic 5, you do a FAIR, so you have a nonconformance. So you say, okay, I know I can't make characteristic 5 yet. So lot 2, nothing happens, so we're still in the same spot. Lot 3, we made some changes to make sure that we can make characteristic 5 good, but the changes had nothing to do with characteristic 2 and 3. But somehow maybe it was a one-off, maybe something randomly happened on those. But I know in my process, I can make those characteristics good. So through here, if you look at FAIR in general, so on lot 3, I'd probably do a FAIR only on characteristic 5 because that was the only thing that my change impacted. Those characteristics 2 and 3 are maybe like a one-off situation, something random happened. But if you think about the FAIR, you think, oh, I can make every characteristic good at least once. So I'm good to go, because FAIR is looking at, specific, a piece, looking at the characteristics within that one piece. So each characteristic can be manufactured at least once. So my FAIR looks good. I'm good to go from a FAIR perspective. So if we go into the next slide, this goes into a little bit more detail around, if we think about the PPAP versus the FAIR. So the PPAP, you'll have a quality target that's laid out, right? So that target, your demand target and your quality target are something that's laid out at the very beginning of your whole APQP landscape. So if you think of that slide before at the very beginning, that's where you defined all your requirements. So let's say that your PPAP quality target is 75%. So I want to be at a 75% for my quality target for my PPAP. And remember, PPAP, you're looking at multiple parts. That's that production process run that I was talking about. So your fair is kind of like your first piece, and okay, I've got to do a change, and that would be my first piece that I'm going to do my fair on. But for PPAP, we're looking at it across multiple parts, multiple characteristics. We're kind of looking at the picture as a whole. So from a fair perspective, like we said on the previous slide, we look good. We can make each one of the characteristics good at least once. So we're okay from a fair perspective. But then if you think about it from a PPAP perspective, we're like, yeah, but overall, we haven't really met our quality target of 75%. So both utilize common data, right, from your production process run. So we're both using the same data, but they think about quality targets a little bit different. So fair, we're looking at the manufacturing of each one of the characteristics. Can my manufacturing process do it at least once? Because really it's one piece, right? And then when you make a change, you'll do it on that piece. So in this case, we've done 2 different fairs, but PPAP's looking at it kind of an overall larger picture of all of my multiple pieces, all the characteristics together, looking at the entire picture. And that's why it is different. It is a little bit different when it comes to quality targets. So I think on the next slide, kind of talk about, yeah. So, okay, so this is just, again, the idea of all of the elements of APQP. So again, I pulled this out of that RM13145. So I have that little picture down the right-hand corner. And what this shows is all of your APQP elements. All of those elements are APQP elements. The ones that are highlighted in blue are also the PPAP elements. So that's what you would submit to your customer for evidence. So that's your evidence pack, your PPAP pack. And you can see that fair is number 26 there. So you can see that it is a part of the overall larger picture. And then again, I just show on the right-hand side, I show that timing plan more, and it kind of shows you where each one of those elements fall or drop into. And you can see the product and process validation phase. That's where you'll drop in that fair, because that's when you're doing a production process run, and your fair should be towards the beginning. Let's say that you have an issue and you're going to correct it, fine, then you might have to do another fair based on that change. But the idea is you're looking at one piece characteristics individually. PPAP is looking at, okay, over my entire production process run, what did I look like? How was my quality target? What did that look like from an overall picture? Okay, move on to the next one. So there's more to PPAP than so there's just more to PPAP. So fair is looking at your one piece specific characteristics, and PPAP is looking at more. So of course they both look at to make sure you understand the engineering requirements, the product design. You want that to be absolutely be finalized. PPAP is looking a little bit more at process control over time, making sure that that's adequate. Making sure that your test inspection method is mature and reliable. So it may be a little bit more there too, because it's over multiple pieces over a certain time frame. Process capability, yield, and rate targets can be achieved. So that's definitely something that's different and specific to PPAP, because you could be running 25, 30 pieces where you can gather that capability data, look at your yield and rate targets, all of that stuff from the picture as a whole. Where fair doesn't look at demand targets and those type of things. So there is definitely more to PPAP than what the fair is looking at. But the fair is definitely looking at that one piece right after you've made that change, or NPI, that first piece, that type of thing. So just wanted to make a little bit more clarity, because I do know the supplier forum. Hopefully you guys were able to join the supplier forum recently, and we do have those throughout the year. But a lot of we heavily focus in on APQP, which is great. It's great. Fair is just a piece of that overall picture. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit from our perspective to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page there. So I think we are good to move on to Klaus, if he wants to give us an update on the 9102 from Rev B to Rev C.
Yes, sure. Let's do so. So Well, we have the next 15 minutes together. So just let me introduce myself in short words. So I'm a member of the SMIC, representing the MTU area engines. I have my desk here in Munich and Germany, which is the main plant of MTU. And right, Munich, this is the village with the Oktoberfest that is running at the moment. We have bright autumn weather and, but let's set the right priorities. So I work on the standardization for non-conformance management and manufacturing approval here. And so this is a point where I also was involved referring assessing the Rev B and Rev C, of course, for our company. And so this is what I want to do here too. So yes, do we have a poll on that? Because the bone of contention, let's say, of our reference manual is the Rev C of the AS9102. Who of you is already working with that? Let us give some seconds to everybody the chance to poll. Okay. That's more yes than no. That's interesting by now. So, okay. Changes still more on the yes side. Okay, but I guess the portion doesn't change anymore. So it's nearly 70% knowing about that. So that's fine. So let's have a look on it. Well, the AS9102, it has some kind of evolution. And so we are at the last point of that, the Rev C. It was started in 2000 with the first publishing, and there were several stages of evolution since that, let's say. So there were already precisions in wording in the past, and the scope did change. And so the digital product definition it came within, and now with the Rev C published last year, we have now these, let's say, 4 major points, which is the more alignment with the mother norm, with the AS9100. So with this product process verification section, it is now much more detailed and more in line with the wording of the mother norm. Then we have more demands for documented processes. So we need to have a process for planning the FAI and also for accomplishment of it. And yes, and then there are enhancements, let's say, for planning and additional demands for that. And yes, and of course the forms did change, but we will look on that in detail. Okay, so next slide, please. The next slide. Yes, thank you. So I did make the difference from yes, chapter to chapter, just as a overview summary, let's say. So the first chapter with changes is the scope. There are the most changes when I count them. So here we have now the so-called multidiscipline team, which shall process the first article inspection. So meaning that you don't prepare it on your own. You shall collect the specialists for that around you or surrounding you to have this kind of multidiscipline team coming to the best result of that. Yes, then there is now dedicated written that the first article inspection is no acceptance certificate or non-conformance assessment. It is just let's say the documentation as of the state as it is. Then now it applies to the organizations or to organizations producing, but also for their supplier and as well as the special process suppliers. They are now named in detail, and for them is also the next point about how to document their results. So there is now also the possibility to use a certificate of conformance for documentation, the first article inspection. Then we have also the scope now regarding the assembly, but we will see that later how the COTS are involved in that in the form particular. And yes, then also in the scope, there is one exception, which is GAN. So before we had that Unix single run productions as an exception. Now we also would need to make a first article inspection, for example, for spare parts or however. So these Unix single run productions. And the last point for the scope is that, yes, we need a separate first article inspection for every item. Item is also defined in the terms of definition. Yes, this is in the next chapter, terms and definition, where are changes. So there are three new terms, which is volute drawing, the COTS, so the commercial off the shelf, and the so-called detail part, which we should become familiar with now. And then also within the terms, now the term of design characteristics, it is now a little bit demanded. It includes also the processing output variables, which is particularly relevant for the special process providers, as it is, for example, conditions of the coating or the heat treatment condition or however. Okay, then let's go to the next slide. Yes, then we have the next chapter, which is the requirements. Here we have yes, the amount or the requirement to have a dedicated process for the first article inspection planning. To define that, write it down and document it. However, then there are additional precisions within the requirements. So it says more details about planning the first article inspection for software, for the measurement accuracy, and also how to handle characters which are not measurable in the final inspection or the final product. We had those chapters already before, but here are now more details for that. Yes, then the next point is within the requirements to have the possibility to use several items within one first article inspection, what is, in my point of view, a relaxation of that, meaning that when the parts are comparable, we can compare them and summarize them within one first article inspection. Then there is a point about the assembly. So when we produce or modify characters later in the assembly, then we shall document them in that assemblies. And then there are references within the requirements for standards about the digital product definition. Yes, this about the requirements. And then the next chapter is the evaluation activities. Here we have an additional amount for risk analysis to go through that within our first article inspection. Then is something that I really prefer is that there are additional examples how to certificate, particularly the material conditions. So here additional examples are listed for that. Then, of course, when it is introduced, then there is also details about the ballooned drawing or the ballooned documents, how to handle them or how to evaluate them. And we have additional requirements for the parts marking verification. Also a chapter that was already in there, but now with more details. Right, so then let's go to the third and last one of the chapter slides here. So please switch. Yes, here we are. Then we have the chapter about non-conformance handling. Non-conformance shall be highlighted within the form 1. How we do that, we see later in the form itself. And then, yes, we have more precisions about what is a consistent corrective action. The demand for that was already in the past, but here we have now a description what is a consistent corrective action, let's say. Yes, and then now new known as the documentation of potentially adjacent characters. So if we have a non-conformance, how do we go on with the surrounding characters? Okay, then the last chapter is, or last chapter with changes, let's say, is the partial first article inspection and the reaccomplishment. So, yes, here is a new part that is now yes, more relevant to the changes of the design definition, let's say. So if there are new characters that are possibly not involved in the former first article inspection, then of course this is a reason to also represent them in the first article inspection. And so one of the reasons for partial first article inspection or reaccomplishment. Yes, then in kind of meaning with that is about how to identify the similarity of first article inspection. So the one point is when is first article inspection similar to another one. So this is now with examples like identical characters, similar part, and identical means of production. And the other point is then how to reference those similar parts or those similar first article inspection. So in a way that you always only can make a similarity to unique characters, so compare what is comparable. Then we have about here also the way to document a process for this reaccomplishment or for the partial F first article inspection. So we need to document a process, how we evaluate changes and design and product or in production, and how we go on with that and how it leads to a first article inspection. And then the wording of fit, form, and function, it was replaced. Okay, so these are the changes within the chapters, and then we have here these difference within the norms. So the main is on the form, changes are on the form 1. I highlighted them here in yellow. So we see in the field number 14 in the fourth line here. Now it is mandatory to set if it is full or partial first article inspection, and also to define the reason for that. So this then goes in a line with these chapters before to giving here information about what is similar and why it is similar and to which first article inspection it is this similar. Then the next change, they are more or less together, I would say. So these are the columns number 17 and 18. So this is within the list of parts which are in the assembly we produce potentially. So here, as we know from the past, all the components from the bill of material, they shall be listed down here. And the columns 17 and 18, they changed. Now here the dedicated parts, they shall be referenced with a kind of part type, saying, is it a standard catalog part, is it a detailed item, or is it a subassembly, however. And then the second line is what FAIR identifies this component. And yes, then the line 19 below that, this is the next change. So here, if we remember, we had in the past these details about is the FAI complete or not complete. So this disappeared, and it is replaced by a simple are there non-conformances, yes or no? So this is the highlighting here on the head page already. To highlight if there are components later in the Form 3. And then we have the signature lines number 20 and 22. So here now there shall be two different people set in. They can be from the same company, but shall be a different personnel, let's say. So somebody who prepares it, he verifies it, and then later another person reviewing it and approving it. So this is about Form 1. Then let's go to the next slide, please. And yes, then we have here the difference in Form 2 and 3. I summarized them because they are not that difficult. Well, the signature fields, they disappeared, so we only have the signature fields on Form 1 remaining. And then there is more, let's say, robust language about the special processes. So possibly those details here, they can be represented by a certificate of conformance for the special process providers. So yes, these are the changes done here in Form 2 and 3, let's say. And well, I guess then I'm through with that so far. Yes, it is. So, and I would hand over to Jason and Eva Marie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eva Marie Linden, and I will talk a couple of the slides for the next session that we have, or the next slides that we have here. I'm working with GTN Aerospace in Trollhättan in Sweden, and I'm a supplier quality system lead, and I'm also an SQE, so my focus is totally for quality and suppliers. We can go to the next page, please. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the AS13100 and how that also comes along with the FAIR requirements. So if you have not seen it or read it or something, and you want a copy of the AS13100, you can go to the FAE.org homepage. The easiest way to find all the standards and also the reference material is to do a search. So if you go for the right corner, you put in the specification or standard that you're looking for. In this case, we are showing the AS13100. You go for the search button and it will pop up all the results that is involved with the certain standard that you are looking for. Most of all the aerospace engine companies do have a subscription for all of these. So most likely you also have these standards within your company's QMS. And on this page, you can also find all the RMs, the reference material standards, and they're all free to download. So it pops up an email, a name request, and then it just downloads the reference material to your computer. So they are easy to find if you don't have them and if you need them. We can take the next page. Next slide. So here we have a couple of steps that is kind of describing what the fair really is. The primary purpose of a fair is to verify and validate product realizations processes are capable of producing characteristics that meet engineering and design requirements. That is the purpose that is coming from the 9102. So if you do a really good planned, complete, and you do an independent, a little bit of what Carrie talked about earlier, the first piece, you do a documented inspection, and then you have ensured that the production process that you have run through the first piece are conforming and lives up to the engineering and design requirements that is for each part or item that we have. Next slide, please. So a little tree here, how requirements are flowed down. Most in these, from the ISO 9001 to the 91,000, we have additional requirements that is flowed down. We can see that the AS9145, it doesn't have those, the requirements in that specification have been taken care of in the chapter A and B in AS13100 when it comes to supplementary requirements. In the AS13100, we also have supplementary requirements for first article inspection. They are put under the 8516 chapter, and they also reference and stating that these supplementary requirements are also addition to the 902, the AS9102. So we have hard requirement on how to do fairs and what needs to be involved in them. And we also have supplementary requirements in the AS13100 that describes what's needed to be in the fair. To have as a guidance, we have the reference material, the RM13102 that is now updated to give you that guidance and hopefully answer all the questions, and if there is anything to help you comply with the AS13100 requirements. We can take the next slide, and I will hand over to Jason.
Thank you, Eva Marie. So my name is Jason Sink. I'm a senior quality manager at GE Aerospace. I've been with the company about 6 years and extremely happy to support GE on this SMIG team and support of AS13100. And so digging in a little deeper about the requirements in AS13100, specifically section 8.5.1.6, first article inspection, one of the key elements is that it adds the requirement that for every kit, every part within a kit, you have to have a completed, documented, and approved first article inspection. And so that means that if your customer is flowing down a single part number, but that part number actually contains multiple part numbers that may come into them in, a kit format as you kind of see pictured, each one of those individual part numbers requires the first article and requires it to be approved. We can move to the next slide. And so an additional requirement that is different from AS9102 is that the evaluation of when change happens. So there's 3 components to this evaluation that you're required to perform. The first is to assess the impact of the change on the ability of the production method to meet the product design characteristics. The second is to evaluate the equipment, associated software programs, the personnel, and even the environment. And the last is to look at all of the changes. So holistically, look at what's changed, whether it be in your process, whether it be in your personnel, whether it be in the environment. You've changed locations. And then understand whether or not that impact may or may not affect product, and determine whether a first article or a partial first article may be required from there. Next slide. And the last thing that I wanted to cover here is the expected changes with the update to AS13100, which Carrie previously mentioned is out on ballot, is we expect the following things to be removed. First, unique single run production orders not intended for ongoing production. Currently, there is a requirement that FAI shall be performed with an exception provided. Second, the exception for automated inspection processes, and the intent there is to actually provide the customer the option to provide exceptions for those automated inspection processes. And the third is the requirement to only release with a complete or not complete fare. So AS9102, as Klaus mentioned, removed the complete or not complete requirement and changed that with, are there any documented nonconformances within Form 1? And so this is really just an alignment to AS9102. And so there are a lot of other requirements within 8.5.1.6. These are the ones that we wanted to highlight. Please go out, get a copy, read, understand all of it. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. And that, I'm going to turn it over to Spencer for highlights and updates.
Thank you, Jason and Eva Marie. Again, I'm Spencer Santiolo. I'm the lead supplier quality engineer at Pratt & Whitney. And I've been there for about 3 years, as well as about 10 years in the supply base, working for all the other OEMs, as well as Pratt & Whitney. We're going to cover the updates that we made to RM13102. So we'll put the pull up on the screen. Alrighty, so about a 60 or 70-30 split on people that haven't had a chance to review it yet. Well, we'll cover over the updates that have been made. If we want to go over to the next slide. So just really quick, we want to make sure that you guys have a chance to find this reference manual. So the link is aesq.sae-itc.com. And if you go under documents and supplemental material, next slide, you will see RM13102, as well as all the other reference manuals that are available for free to download at any time. It doesn't require you to have to sign into anything. You just go right to that link, and under documents, you can find everything you need. Next slide. So we're going to talk through, just as a quick high-level summary of the sections, and then I have some slides on each one of the sections that was updated. But, you know, what's changed is the updates that we made to match revision C of AS9102, as well as some clarification and updates as, to match AS13100 as well. So there were some changes to section 3, section 4. There were some additions in section 5. We updated the table in section 6. We updated table 1 and made some changes and updates to section 6 and section 7. Next slide, please. So the updates that we made are throughout are in accordance with AS9102 Rev C. On this section, we ended up changing the complete and not complete were being replaced with documented nonconformance. And we also, we made some changes to those sections and those figures to capture the fact that we're no longer AS9102 is no longer using the complete and not complete statements. Next slide, please. So section 3, this section was updated to provide some clarity to customer supplied material. The example being that a customer supplies the product, they are responsible for the FAI. So that was really the biggest change here. Wanted to just give you guys an example of what to consider for this. Next slide, please. Section 4, we really just removed the verbiage for form, fit, and function to match AS9102 Rev C. Next slide, please. Section 5, we provided some examples for understanding things to consider for possible exemptions. Just to note, right, these exemptions require customer approval to utilize in lieu of the use of independent inspection equipment from production. So, things to consider when production inspection process is automated and cannot be influenced by production staff. That's a great example of something that should be brought to review for customer approval to exempt you from having an independent inspection method. When FAI results are obtained by personnel that only carry out product, which would be inspectors, and then when independent inspection measurements are not practical, like cost, it could be a small machine shop that's doing this work. So that's what section 5.0 subsection B was showing. So next slide, please. Table 1, we removed the need for FAI history back to the previously approved FAI. We did this because the customer should already have this data utilizing softwares like NetInspect. Just a reminder that this does not override your customer's requirements if they're different, right? So some customers may still require the need for the historical FAI data, but this is this is from an overarching thing because of some customers are getting away from that need for the FAI history because it's already linked in other areas. Next slide, please. So section 6, we added this as it's good practice to identify any inspection equipment used for inspecting hardware. We already, this is a pretty common practice, but we want to just make sure that we're addressing it as well in the reference manual as well. Next slide, please. And then section 7 was what we ended up doing was previously the sections were written in sentence format. We ended up reformatting them to questions for an easier way for people to review the completeness of the fair. The other thing that some people we've seen do as well is take this section and actually utilize it as a checklist for their review of their FAI to make sure that it's complete. So they'll go through those questions and make sure that they have the majority of their things covered. And again, there might be some specifics that may be different in relation to your customers' requirements, but these we went through and covered the things that are the same throughout all the OEMs. Next slide, please. This is just a reference of the table of contents and what's included in the table of contents. And the next slide is the table of figures and the list of figures that are associated within the document. Next slide. And with that, I will hand it off to Brent for future plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer. Good morning. My name's Brent Harrell. I'm a senior PQE and control title holder at GE Aerospace. I've just about 20 years here at GE, all of it in quality, various roles. And what we're going to be talking about next is the future plan. So go to the next slide. I think we have a Slido. So what we want you guys to do here is jump into the Slido and in a few words, give us some more information of what you'd like to see us work on for our next project here in the subject matter interest group. So we'll wait just a minute and let the word cloud populate. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about it. Well, it looks like overwhelmingly most of you guys are upvoting planning. So I'm taking that to mean manufacturing planning and quality planning, which is a really interesting topic. I know there's been a lot of conversation through the years that I've been involved in around, planning being too wordy or not enough pictures, not enough photos, not enough good examples in planning on how to do things, and especially human factors is a big topic there. Looks like we went to the next slide, so I don't see the rest of the topics on the word cloud. Drive backwards. Yes, there we go. And other things you guys just mentioned, some FAI examples, some aligning the OEM requirements, examples again, partial FAIR reasons. Great topic there. When would you do a partial versus a full? What reasons why you might want to consider doing a partial? So yeah, these are great topics and things we'll look into as a group for our next projects. Okay, next slide. Okay, and we're also going to be using the LinkedIn site to continue to develop and interact and drive next actions. So if you have, ideas, comments, questions, you can put them there for the group as well, and for the future. And then based on these responses, we're going to be targeting these themes to determine next actions, because right now we don't have we're not going to be working on a revision to the reference manual quite right now. So we're going to be looking at, diving into some of these topics from you guys. Thanks. And then off to Jason.
Thanks, Brent. Greatly appreciate it and agree wholeheartedly. Those were some awesome topics, provide us with some notional direction. So I get the joy of leading the Q&A. And so SMIG members, I may call on you surprisingly or not, depending on what the question is. And we'll get started with the first one. How do I get involved with your SMIG or other SMIGs? And that is a fantastic question. We obviously want to promote the AESQ RM groups and the SMIGs within those. The first thing that I would suggest is look within your company and see if any are already engaged. And if they are, reach out to them, make sure that your company would like that additional representation. But to further answer the question, I think I'm going to call on Carrie because I think she's probably got the most experience getting people added.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and that is to the AESQ site, but I'm specifically going to go to the Contact Us page there. So if you click on that, there's obviously other options to choose in there, and you can take a look around. There's lots of information there too, but there's that Contact AESQ. So it's kind of like a generic email that you can send to get involved with either with us or with other SMIGs, and then that will get linked to the SMIG leader to help get you involved. So that's a good one too to take a look. But I do like the idea of contacting, figuring out within your company, because there may be somebody already involved within your company and kind of see what's going on there. But you can absolutely use that Contact Us email that I have linked in there.
Yeah, and feel just to tack on to that, feel free to reach out to us on our LinkedIn page that we presented earlier. We'll absolutely get you in touch with the right people and get you the right resources to join us and participate. We're excited about that. All right, next question. What versions of the FAIR forms do I have to use? Another excellent question with the rev change of AS9102 from B to C. Luckily, I know this one right kind of off the top of my head. C absolutely allows you to use previous revisions. However, they must have the elements of the current revisions. So completed, not completed went away, changed to documented nonconformances. Klaus went over many other changes in Forms 1. There were changes to Forms 2 and 3. But I think what we see most is the requirement to use customer versions of the forms. So electronic systems, I think Spencer, you mentioned Net Inspect, at GE, I know we have ECAV, others have many other electronic types of forms. Excuse me. And so ultimately it's gonna reside with what your customer requires you to use, but 9102 absolutely gives you the ability to use previous revisions, provided they have all the elements of the current revisions. Next question. Do I have to resubmit my PPAP when my FAIR updates? And this is a good one. This is a good one. So if we were in automotive, the answer would be an obvious yes, but we're not in automotive, and FAI has been established in aerospace for a very, very long time. And so most businesses have processes directly around their first article inspection. And so it's going to be very customer dependent. As PPAP develops within the aerospace industry, the answer could turn to yes in most cases, but in most cases now I see it as a no. It's a first article inspection update, and then the other elements of the PPAP are updated either independently or submitted independently as well. Anybody else on our SMIG team have any comments there?
I guess something else just to add is that reference manual. So RM13145. That one is a great one to take a look at because there is a change situations table in there. Again, it's guidance, but it does give you some different change situations and tells you when should PPAP be applicable and when would FAIR be a part of your PPAP package to send in and all of that stuff. So really a good reference manual. I'll drop that in the chat as well, that number so you guys know. But one that's a really good one to take a look at because it kind of helps you understand, do I need to do a PPAP or not? It gives you change situations there. So I'll drop that in there.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carrie. Greatly appreciate it. Next question. Does customer have to approve all the detail part and assembly fairs, or as long as the details are approved internally, is approval only the top level fair? That is also a very good question, and it's going to be dependent upon a few things in my mind. First being, is this supplier design? because in many cases, I see OEMs allow supplier design with multiple components, have their first article inspections internally approved, and then whatever the OEM is ordering actually from the supplier only have an FAI and have that approved. But if it is a kit that the customer is ordering and it's customer defined, then yes, the answer is the customer is going to have to approve every one of those part numbers within that kit, unless they provide you with some sort of exception. Anybody else have any comments on that one? That was a good one.
I think
All
you
right.
hit that.
Thanks, Spencer. Greatly appreciate that. All right. Next question. Element 13 is blue or white, as this element is blue and white on the same time at page 17. So I think this is referring to slide 17, Carrie, which I think was one of yours. And
Yep,
so
yep.
I'm guessing that they're asking why they were blue or white, and I don't
Yep.
know if you know off the top of your head.
Yeah, so I did take a look at this. And I agree. Yeah, they're both. they're one's blue on the left hand side, and then on the color coding on the right hand side, it's not. So, or vice versa. So, what's happening here, I think, is what the problem is that you have your APQP elements, and then they blued only the PPAP specific evidence requirements, and then on the right hand side, the color coding just doesn't match. There is an update coming on for the 13145, and it's going to help better number these and kind of make sure that it's clear as to what's part of the PPAP package or not. So a PPAP element will have a different numbering scheme than the APQP element. So for example, you see your process flow diagram is number 8 on this chart. I think it might change to like PPAP element number 4, because that's number 4 in this list of PPAP elements. So the update to 13145, I think, is going to help clarify, because they have received some issues with people saying, I'm getting very confused on the numbering and what is what and all this stuff, because your PPAP isn't everything in your APQP and all that stuff. So I understand the confusion. I get it. The color coding doesn't quite match up here, but the left-hand side is the correct idea of what the PPAP elements are. But I do think that the 13145 will be updated soon. If it hasn't already, might already be updated, to kind of help us better with that numbering scheme and make it very clear what's your PPAP and what is not your PPAP. So sorry about that. I do see what you're saying with the difference in the color coding, but take a look at that new one and see if that helps with making sure you understand what the PPAP elements are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, next question. Can we have the link for the latest revision of RM13102 again, please? And for that, I'm going to actually ask Spencer, is there any way that you can get that link and post it within the chat here? Is that something that... Awesome.
I'm just sending that out right now.
Fantastic. All right. And Tom, thank you for this next question. How can those who don't have LinkedIn accounts join in with the community of practice? And so the first thought is that you sign up when you go download the RM from the SAE website. You enter in your email and you can elect into receiving updates through that listing. You're added to a distribution list if you choose, and you're able to receive updates and participate in it that way. Another method would be, again, get with your business, see who's already involved, and see if there's a way for you to get involved with what they're doing, or if they can lead you into other communities of practice to get involved there. Any other, Carrie? This one seems right up your lane. Is there anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, I think AESQ has just chosen to use LinkedIn for that communication avenue for the community of practices. So unfortunately, I don't know of any other ways other than what Jason just mentioned. So that's all I got.
And looks like Tom, you asked another question. So again, thank you. Keep them coming. We appreciate them. How should customer approvals be recorded in relation to section 5.0 point B? And how does this work when a supplier has its own fair approval delegation? So, yeah, take it, Spencer. Go for it.
I could take it. Yeah. So, the first part of this, right? I would say would be, I would say depending on how it is, the customer approval is sent and provided, right? I would attach that into the FAI in some way, like you said, Pratt Whitney utilizes NetInspect, so uploading that into the documents section of NetInspect just to have it on record. GE utilizes ECAV, so uploading it into the ECAV portal. So that would be what I'd mention for that. And then the second part of that question would be, how does this work when a supplier has its own FAI approval delegation? I would absolutely reach out to your customer. I would say this is very customer specific, and understanding what your responsibilities are as owning the fair approval delegation process, right? Because this may be outside when you're talking about these exemptions. They can be outside of the outside of your approval delegation allowances. So I would definitely reach out to your customer and get that information.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Looks like one more question here. Non-accessible characteristics, where we were talking about welded parts, destructive measurement will also change the characteristics. Absolutely, it will. And to try to mitigate and help with the completion of the fair, there are provisions that allow for in-process measurement of characteristics that will be covered up prior to a final inspection. And so that's something to consider there, but also depending on what destructive requirements you have, maybe that part's not the best one for first article inspection, or maybe, I'm going to say recommend getting with your customer and verifying how they want you to handle any kind of destructive measurement requirements on any first article inspection that you have to perform. So assuming that it's on the product definition, you're going to need to get with your customer to see how they want you to handle it. I know for many, it's, you can use that part, and then even though it's destroyed during testing, whether it be some sort of tensile test or something along those lines, you can still utilize that part for first article inspection in many cases. Anybody else have anything on that one? Awesome. Well, I think that is it for the Q&A. So if we want to go ahead and move on to the next slide, where I'm pretty sure we're going to be turning it over to Carrie to close us on out of here with about 7 minutes left.
All right. So, So now we're going to just do a wrap up quickly. So we just want to make sure you guys are aware of future webinars very similar to this that are taking place. You can go to that website. So Spencer posted a link, and then I also have a link. It kind of goes to different sections of the AESQ site, but you can go there and find upcoming events. So please feel free to go there. There may be more than what's listed here, and they seem to be added kind of quite often. So make sure you go to that website and find out what else is coming up next, and you'll be able to register for any upcoming events that are happening. Next slide. And then just a reminder, we will have the PowerPoint posted, the video posted of this on the AESQ website. It will be under events that have happened. You'll be able to take a look at those, and then also share with your colleagues as well if they're interested. And then what we did last time is we took all of the questions that you guys asked. So if you have any other questions that we didn't get to, or if you are thinking of something, feel free to add them over the next couple minutes. But what we'll be doing is just posting a Q&A presentation that just has all of your questions and our answers to it that you'll be able to find as well. That might take us a little, like a week or so, a couple weeks to get that updated on there, but you'll be able to find that also, so that you can come back and take a look and remember how we had to answer those questions through the Slido. And I think if we move on to the next slide, I think that's it. Yep. So thank you guys very much for participating. Thank you for doing the polls and also the word cloud and asking the questions. We really appreciate it. We do want to stay involved, so make sure you join that community practice. Ask questions there to get us going on our next thing that we're going to be working on. But thank you to the team for helping out with presenting. I thought that was great, and hopefully the folks that joined got something out of it. So thank you guys, and stay connected with us.